Thank you for joining us. Let's first take the opportunity to say Happy International Women's Day. Break the bias. Thank you everyone for joining us from wherever you are. We typically have a global audience, so I'm hoping that people should just put in their chat box where you are joining us from. Can see we have up to 10 attendees now, and we're expecting more. We had over 100 people register for the event. Welcome everyone. Happy International Women's Day. Aramide is in Rotterdam, holding the fort in Europe. Zimbabwe, Christabel, thank you for joining us. Where are our Lagosians? I'm in Lagos. Saudi Arabia, thank you for joining us from Saudi Arabia. Happy International Women's Day. Lagos, Abuja, Somi, Yenegua, Happy International Women's Day, Gloria from Yenegua. Mrs. Z is joining live from Lagos. Thank you for joining us, Ma. Wait a few minutes for more people to join. Thank you so much for joining us.
Is that I need to move closer to this?
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone from all over the world. I think I can count at least 4 continents represented now. Happy International Women's Day, everyone. So at 1:10, would start the session. Thank you everyone again for joining. We look forward to more comments in the chat. Just tell us what International Women's Day is like where you are today. How are you celebrating? You can just drop us a chat. I'm sure everybody would like to know. Okay. So I think I would hand over now to Aramide Abe, founder of Ninja Startups, to take us forward.
Thank you very much, Yemi. Good afternoon, everyone, again. Happy International Women's Day. Let's break the bias. My name is Aramide, like Yemi said, founder of Ninja Startups, which is an entrepreneur support organization. And it's a pleasure to have everyone join us today from all around the world. We've been seeing the different locations in the chat box. Please feel free to add as you join. And yes, today is a special day. Every month since the start of this year, we've had a roundtable with a business leader, an African business leader, and they've gone amazingly well. In fact, Mrs. Z has been a part of conceptualizing that. And so today, being International Women's Month, we thought it great to have her as our honored guest and guest speaker. And honestly, typically I'm the one who moderates, but because we said it's Women's Day, I said, okay, let the women take a break and let a gentleman moderate. So one of our members, Mr. Gubemi Atimomo will be moderating, but before I hand over, I'll just do a brief introduction about the Roundtable. This was conceptualized to support or enable the members of the Niger Startups Network who are aspiring budding business leaders, many of them 15, 20 years experience, but still looking to learn and to develop, learn from veterans in industry. And it's been a success so far, and we hope to grow this and make this a sustainable one. And thus, we have every month a business leader come on and just share wisdom with us, and that's purely the intent of it. And so today I have I'll introduce our moderator first, Mr. Gubemi Atimomo, who is a member of the Niger Startups Network. He's been a member for many years. He's also an HR consultant. And runs an outfit called Business in Tandem Limited. And he's the founder of a network as well, a startup network called Side Hustle NG, which I'm also a member of, and it's quite a fun network to be a part of. So he will be moderating and asking the questions today. And then, of course, we have our honored guest and speaker. I'm just going to read a part of her bio. I know most of you have seen her bio online. A lot of people are excited to hear about her story. She is the founder and chairman of Eventful Limited, a leading events planning and consulting company in Nigeria. She studied law at University of Lagos and thereafter obtained an LLM from Cambridge University, then established her own business, Eventful Limited, in 2002. She retired in March 2021, only last year, and handed over to a successor. So we'll be looking to hear a lot about that because she's seen as a go-to when it comes to succession planning. Eventful is the pioneer and a market leader in the events and venue management and consulting business in Nigeria. She is the convener of the Food Souk. I know many of you know that. You may not know who was behind it. It's a world-class food and beverage fair. The Beauty Souk as well, which is a niche fair for beauty enthusiasts, and the Fashion Souk, a fashion fair showcasing the value chain of the Nigerian fashion business. She's a founding trustee and a past chairperson of WIMBIZ, Women in Management and Business, an organization established with the objective of being the catalyst that elevates the profile of women in management, business, and the public sector. So, of course, it's fitting for her to be our guest speaker today. She is the author of 4 inspirational books, God's Waiting Room 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you haven't got a copy, I suggest you do. Go and grab a copy. She has recently executed in the production of a movie, The Wait, inspired by her books. She is the proud 2011 recipient of the prestigious International Women's Entrepreneurial Challenge IWEC Award. She is also a 2015 recipient of This Day newspaper's Game Changer Award for being the pioneer and game changer in the event planning industry. She serves on several boards and non-profit organizations as a non-executive director and chairman. Please welcome Mrs. Yewande Zacheaus. And I'm handing over to Bubemi now.
Thank you so much, Aramide, for the introductions. Welcome, Mrs. Zacheaus. Thanks for honoring our invitation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gubemi, and thank you, Aramide. It's lovely to be here.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, so kicking things off, I know we had discussed a bit yesterday about how we were going to go through this. And one of the things that I remembered is, and like Aramide had also mentioned in her intro, that today is International Women's Day. The theme for this year is Break the Bias. So some of the questions that we have will be sort of tilted towards that direction as well, but we'll generally just, go through all the other questions, some of which I have, some which members of the Niger Startups Network have sent in, and then some which other participants will send in through the Q&A function on the Zoom. So I'd also like to just announce that if you have any questions, you can just submit them through the Q&A function, through the Q&A function on Zoom. Okay, so, when I looked through your profile, one of the things that I noticed was that it was quite rich. And you had sort of like a broad experience. You studied law, you practiced law, you worked in banking, you've been involved in not-for-profit, and then you eventually, went on to start your business in events management, which at the time I know wasn't really like a popular angle for people to go into. So I'd just like to ask first and foremost, what would you say have been your key career highlights?
When you say career, are you talking about my time as a professional or a time as my entrepreneurial life? Everything.
Yes.
What has been my key career highlights? That's an interesting question. I think, first of all, when I joined the bank, EcoBank was a regional bank, so it was quite different from the local banks. So I think it was exciting being the first company secretary of a bank that wasn't just based in Nigeria, but was based in the West African region. So, we got to do a lot of traveling. And then there was also the interest of, just seeing how the Francophone and the Anglophone countries worked. So for me, career highlight, I was company secretary. So I had a lot of exposure to the directors and to how the bank was being run, how an organization can be run from the top level. I think for me, that was quite important. As an entrepreneur, going into a new space, as you've said, in the time when I started the business, there wasn't even anything like an events management company. We really were clearly the pioneers. Possibly there may have been event management companies event management divisions in like PR companies, but not a standalone. So even just breaking into that, space was a career highlight. Being able to sustain it, because a lot of people felt, what's this? It's not going to last. Being able to sustain it, I think for me is a highlight. And then being able to actually hand over after 19 years, that clearly must be the icing on the cake. Because for me, having been in a structured organization, both in law and banking for 18 years, I was clear that whatever business I was going to build, I wanted it to be a business that would outlast me. And I did everything I could during the 19 years I was running the business to actualize that. So it was extremely fulfilling for me to be able to actually hand over that business to a successor who is not related to me. And I think that must be the highlight of my time as an entrepreneur.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ma. So just picking up from that, I had sort of guessed that events management wasn't really a popular thing at the time. But before events management, I'm sure there was like the push for you to go into entrepreneurship. So what motivated you to even consider that? Because, with a job like you had at EcoBank as company secretary, that's sort of like the pinnacle. I'm sure people must have thought to you, are you sure you know what you're doing?
No, I got a lot of that. I got a lot of that because, as you said, I first started off with a law firm. I found I didn't really enjoy the law. I mean, I was in practice and it wasn't really, it wasn't that interesting. I now went into, a bank, as you said. But at the bank, I had a very good time at the bank. I mean, I was very successful in EcoBank. I worked at NAMBO as a youth corporate before I became the head of the legal department and company secretary in EcoBank. And I had a very successful career. I was a deputy general manager. But, by the time I went on maternity leave and came back, and I realized I was completely bored. I realized that I had no interest in getting up and going to work anymore. I didn't enjoy what I was doing. It was repetitive. I had trained the person who was next to me so well that really she could do the job and I could just sit in my office and not do anything. And I felt that wasn't the life I wanted to live. So I just really began to ask people, okay, what are you doing? The people who were in the business, how did you get into your own business? And for most people, it was, look, this is what I love to do, whether it was they were in fashion or they were into, the arts or they were into, catering or whatever it was. And then I just had to think, okay, what is it that I enjoy doing, that I do, that comes to me naturally? Because everybody said that whatever they were doing was something that came to them naturally. And the only thing I could really think about was just being organizing people. I mean, I'd always sort of organized things in my family, for my friends. And I thought, could this actually be a business? So I sort of went online, read about it, and realized that it was a thriving business in other parts of the world. And that was when I decided that, what, I need to live my life. I need to be, that was 20 years ago now. I need to enjoy what I'm doing every day. I'm a very passionate person. I need to be, passionate about what I'm doing. I need to be excited when I wake up, and I need to be doing something that even if they don't pay me, I'm happy to do it. And that was actually what tilted it for me. A lot of people thought, oh, maybe I knew something was going to happen in the banking industry because I left at the time when there were a lot of, people being laid off and all that. I said, no, it was just my own personal decision. And I was just very blessed that I took it at that time. So it wasn't that I had any crystal ball, but I was just being true to myself. And that was how I veered into entrepreneurship, and particularly into events management, which, as I said, was actually totally unheard of at that time.
Okay, so I hear you talk a lot about passion, and I've heard people say, oh, you need to be passionate about what it is that you do and all of that. But I also hear people say these times that passion does not put food on the table, so if I'm passionate about my business or my idea or whatever it is, and it doesn't seem to be bringing the turnover or the returns that I think it should, why should I persist in it if it doesn't seem to be an opportunity for its time or whatever, even though I'm passionate, why should I persist in it? So what would be your advice in terms of passion and what should I call it now? Reality.
Reality. I think you should be passionately realistic. No, because the truth is, you see, without passion, you can't even begin the business. But you're right. Can passion sustain it? No, passion alone cannot sustain it. Your business must be something that is filling a need. If you have a business right now that is not filling a need, that there isn't a gap that you are entering into and filling, then it's not likely to be lucrative. It's not likely to be successful. So I think the first thing anybody who's going into an entrepreneurship must think of is, what gap am I filling? I mean, it's events management came at a time. I mean, can you imagine 20, 25 years ago, nobody would allow you to handle a work in their corporate organization or handle a private wedding. It was just not thought of. These things were done in-house. But I think it was just that the time had come and people were ready to release that stress to somebody else and pay for it. And so we were fortunate. But as I've said, whatever it is you're getting into, it's not a business if it's not filling a need. It's not a business if there's not a gap that you're entering into and you're filling, no matter what it is. So I think that is really very important. So no matter how passionate you are, you must make sure that the numbers add up. You must, of course, have done a business plan before you set in with all the passion that you have. But passion is great because passion sustains you during the times when things are low. Passion helps you to keep forging ahead through the difficult season, and there will be difficult season. But if you're obviously hitting your head against a brick wall, then it's time for you to, take a deep breath, stop and think, and try and just sort of tweak the business, or maybe even start something else afresh. But you're right, every entrepreneur is just so passionate about what they do, but we must be realistically passionate.
Thank you very much for that, man. So one thing I've also realized through your work at Eventful was how you created events like the food souk, the street souk, so typically when people think about events, it's, oh, somebody has something to do and they come to you. But what you've done was do the reverse. I have this idea and I want people to I want to bring people to me in that sense.
Yes.
So how do you go about the process of generating ideas, thinking about ideas, and how do you go about managing that process up until reality?
Okay, it's part of it. I think I'm somebody I'm actually quite restless. Once I've done something and it's successful, I just feel the need to press on and do something else and go deeper into something else. So after I'd run the events business for about, I think must have been 13 to 14 years. And as you say, people come to you. So they bring their money, they bring their ideas, you just implement. I realized that, we have the credibility now to say we want to have our own events. And, we want to showcase how events can be done in Nigeria. We want to broaden the entertainment landscape. And that was what really brought about the Souks initiative. And I'll tell you this for nothing, even within my company, my staff didn't really buy into it at first, because I remember I'd mentioned it at 2 strategy retreats in a row, but nobody sort of picked it up and was ready to run with it with me. But when you're a visionary, you just decide, I'm going to do this. And then I said to them, okay, you know what? I'm going to work with a team outside of the office, people who are keen on this kind of thing, and a couple of you will help. So I started with the food souk, and I went to a chef called Chef Tian, who had just come back from America, set up a culinary academy, and she was really interested because this is the kind of thing that's done over the world. Apart from that, I always know that whether it's for the food, the beauty, or the fashion. For the beauty, I went to all the top people in fashion, in beauty. I went to Tara, I went to OK of Zara, and I went to Banke Mashile. That, look, this is what I want to do, but I'm not a beauty person. I'm an events manager. So you tell me, what do you need? How should we go about it? It's the same thing with fashion. So I think the first thing is, first of all, to identify that your strength is in managing the events and coordinating it and making it work. Then work with the people in that creative sector so that you're able to have... Gubeme, can you still hear me? Wow. I think I've gone.
No, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me, okay, because his video went off, so I can continue
his
speaking.
video, but
Sorry, I can hear you. Just had a technical glitch.
Okay. All right, no worries. I thought it was from my end. So where was I? So the most important thing is to work with people in that industry. And then, of course, how do you bring it to reality? These kind of events, these kind of exhibitions require a lot of money. So sponsorship. So we had to go, and that was really hard, because when you're used to people bringing the money to you to do their work, having to go out and convince people that, look, this is a good cause, this will help entrepreneurs, this will help them scale, this is good for the country. But, we did it and it worked. And they've all been very successful. Because of COVID, we had to sort of shelve the food souk and the beauty souk and the fashion souk. We sort of rolled into one. We had a virtual experience. I think that was 2020, we did a virtual one, but we've come back to the in-house souks, and they've been very, very popular. They've been very well received. And I think what people have said about them, and then what I also did was I actually went abroad to food fairs, to beauty fairs, to make sure that what I was doing was in line with international standards. And I'm happy to say that it was. I was very pleased with that. So you really have to just gather the knowledge from those who know, but make sure you do it at the standard that is way beyond what would normally take place in our country.
Okay, so what I can pick up from you is you don't even have to be an expert in that area. If you have the idea, you can find the experts who give you the advice and know
exactly
how you tend to launch out.
Exactly, because they know people
do. Okay, so this year, Eventful is 20, and you handed over last year to a successor. At our last roundtable, we spoke to Mr. Hassan Odukale, and we also spoke about succession because he also just recently handed over. So I'd like to get your thoughts about how you went about it. A lot of people think, oh, who am I going to hand over my business to? Even if it's my children, are my children ready? Or I can never hand over my business to someone who's not family, which is exactly what you've done. So what are your thoughts around succession planning? How did you prepare for it? How did you go about identifying your successor and grooming the person?
Okay. As I've said, I always knew that I really, really enjoyed, setting up the business. I enjoyed coming into a space where I basically had to chart it was a totally on a charted terrain. And I literally had to make up the rules as I went along. I was excited by the fact that the industry grew, and now, we've got so many event professionals and so many feeder businesses. But as usual, as I was growing older, I realized that, I need to do something more. I need to do something more interesting. And I began from actually when the company was 10, I actually started looking out at who can run this company? Who can I leave to run this company so I can do other things? Because whenever I do anything, I do it with my whole heart, soul, and body. So I knew that whatever I was going to go and do after, I would not be able to continue to manage this company. And I first had a set of three managers who I thought would be the ones to. But as time went on, each of them decided they wanted to go their own way and do other things. But I spoke to my sister. She was chairman of Accenture at the time. And I said, oh, this is the bane of small businesses. You train them, you mentor them, then they go. I said, no, this happens everywhere. This happens in Accenture. You train them, you mentor them, you go. Just know that you're giving back. So I decided, you know what? I'll just keep looking. I'll keep hiring. I'll keep mentoring. And eventually, I got a crop of managers that I felt they understand my vision. They know what I'm about. They know how important this brand is and the brand elements that we cannot compromise in any way. And what is interesting is that the MD-ship did not go to the person who joined earliest. It did not go to, as somebody even said to me, how come you hand it over to a man and not a woman, It went to the best person for the job. I needed somebody who I knew was as driven as I was. I needed somebody who I knew was as passionate about the work as I was. And I needed somebody who was completely trustworthy, because integrity is so key. And so once I identified this person, I not only mentored him, I also got other people that I knew, men that I was close to, who I felt had values that he needed to imbibe, to mentor him. And then I also ensured that he had training at the highest level, to the Entrepreneurial Development Center in Lagos Business School, training abroad, so that, and just giving a real feel of ownership. But when I say this, it's something that you have to balance very carefully, because once you've identified who the leader is going to be, you might disenfranchise the other people. So we have to make sure that we're carried along and everybody knows that, you know what, okay, first amongst equals, but at least see that this is going to happen in this business. I want you to know that all of you have skin in the game in this business. I want you to know that this business is our business. It's no longer just about Yewande Zacheaus. And one thing I needed to do, because especially when you work in the service industry, was I needed to work at separating my persona from the business. And that's very difficult because when it's a service industry, people are asking for Yewande rather than asking for Eventful. So over the past 2 years before I retired, I consciously stepped back from being the face of the business. I consciously would not go to, if I went to a meeting, I would only go for the first one. And I'd say, oh, this is your project manager, or this is your debt manager, and I'd hands off. So that people began to get used to my the managers running the business. People began to understand that, well, if she can trust him or her enough to leave her to do this, then she must be good. So those were the kind of things that I did to enable the succession planning. And you know, the interesting thing was, I did it as a life-saving venture, really, so that I could still enjoy my life and do other things. So I was surprised at the outpouring of emotion I got last year. So many people who came up to me and said, Yewande, how did you manage to do that? I've always wanted to do this. I felt I couldn't release my business. And I was like, wow, okay. So as Aramide said, I became the go-to girl for how do you leave your business for others to run.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, man. So just piggybacking off that as well, I'd like to ask a question on leadership. How would you describe your leadership style? And a slight twist to that, do you think it's different from how men lead people?
Yeah. I think my leadership style is something you'll describe. I think in textbooks it's described as paternalistic, but because today is International Women's Day and I'm a woman, I would say it's probably more maternalistic, very an empathy-led leadership. I find that and I think it was because of the way I was brought up and the way I saw my parents treat their staff. I tend to have my staff as a family and not as my workers. I treat them as colleagues and not that boss to a subordinate kind of thing. I did this subconsciously, not because I went to any business school that said this is what you do to get this, but because that was who I was and that was how I was raised. Now, when I really discovered the impact of this was at the time I was leaving, my staff had an impromptu, actually we were just at a meeting, and then they all started talking about how I had impacted them. And one of them said that, he's never been at a job for up to 3 years, that after 12 to 18 months he moves, but that because here he felt that the person who was leading actually really cared about them, cared about their progress, cared about their life. It was more than just do this work and, and bring me my money kind of thing. That made him stay. And different people said it in different ways. So whilst it was something I did because that was just what was natural to me, that was what I learned growing up, that was my own unconscious bias, so to speak, it seems to have worked because most of the people in my company have been with me, 12, 13 years. People stay because you make sure they have a workplace that is happy. You make sure you have a workplace that is thriving. Having said that, I am extremely firm and I'm a great disciplinarian. So just making sure that they have both sides of the coin, I think has helped in sustaining the business, in sustaining the longevity of the staff and maintaining their loyalty. So I think for me, that is the kind of leader I am because that is who I am. That was how I was brought up. And I'm just extremely fortunate that it has worked in making my business more successful. And yes, to your question, do men lead that way? Maybe some, but I don't think generally that's the way the men lead. I think generally, and I don't want to be too, where you just cast everybody in the same blanket. But I think typically men are more action-oriented, men are more, get me this done, and I don't really care what you're going through. But I think women tend to care more. We're more empathic. We care more about the lives of these individuals and who they are, particularly during COVID. I know that there were a lot of stuff that we did in our company that people were like, wow, how did you even think of that? That I have my friends who, they just shut them down. They just stopped paying them. They didn't care whether, their families could feed or not. But we did a lot of things to just show people that, yes, it's a tough time, but it's a tough time for all of us, and we're going to get through this as a family. And I think that has worked for me personally.
Thank you very much for that, Ma. I'd just like to remind everyone, if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box, and then we'll take them shortly. Okay, so I'd like to just ask a few questions around the theme of the International Women's Day, Break the Bias. And women experience a lot of bias in society, not just in the professional environment and general society. What are your thoughts around why you think bias exists, and what types of bias have you experienced through your career? Also, how have you surmounted them?
I mean, biases exist because we're human beings, and everybody has unconscious biases because of the way they were raised. We feel a particular race is a particular way because they speak somehow or they dress somehow. We feel that because women are the supposed weaker sex, there's some things they cannot do, they cannot provide, they cannot add value in these kind of places, which of course is untrue. So I think that a lot of us are programmed by our environment. That's clear to me. We're programmed by where we were brought up and how we're taught to think, by culture, by religion. That is how the biases start. As a woman, what biases have I experienced? In the workplace, honestly, I can't say, I honestly have tried to think about it to say, where did I experience a lot of bias, whether it was in the banking or in law or whether as an entrepreneur. Maybe other life issues, like things like, you find that you belong to a club and they say that because you're a wife of a member, you're not allowed to vote, maybe things like that. Maybe the fact that, you're an entrepreneur, but because you're a married woman, there's some places you cannot go that the big boys can go, and that's where the decisions are being taken that would help your business, those sort of biases. But I find that I was raised to be a human being rather than a woman or a man. My father always said, I have no heir apparent. He actually did not care whether you were male or female. He just expected the same standards of all his children. And that I have no heir apparent became such a mantra for me that I just get up and do things without really caring whether anybody is going to be bothered that, oh, it's a woman and she's doing this, and it's a man that she's doing this. So I'm afraid I really can't give you specific examples where I felt that, oh, it was because I was a woman, because I've worked also in very forward-thinking organizations. So I haven't had to experience those kind of things. And where we did, I was quick to, like one of the things that happened while there was a time I was in charge of HR in the bank, and we realized that whilst the men in the bank would pay for their wives' pregnancy and antenatal care, but the women in the banks, yes, they wouldn't pay for antenatal care. And we're like, how are you going to favor a woman who is married to a man? And me, that I'm a woman working with you, you're not going to do this. So that was one time that I did, experience that bias, and we kicked against it, and we got the HR policy to be reviewed. So those are the kind of things that I think I've experienced. But in the workplace directly or in my own business directly, I think that, it has been fairly free of that kind of strife. And where it has raised its head, I have just been able to, stand up for it and decide that, we're not going to let this happen to us.
Okay. So, but how would you advise women who face bias at work? Because I've heard, for example, some people say, oh, men are paid differently from how I'm paid. They hear about opportunities before I hear about opportunities.
Hello?
I think we've lost him.
We've lost him. Okay.
It's assumed
but
that it wasn't working, things like that. So how would you advise women to manage the biases that present themselves?
Okay, I think we lost you halfway through, but I think basically what you were asking is that what advice would I give to women who face this kind of challenges?
Exactly.
I think you need to speak up. And I think that's what's just so important now. And I believe a lot of us have found our voices now. I'm so proud of all the women's groups and organizations who are rising against this absolute arrant nonsense by the men in the National Assembly. And we need to speak up. We need to let people know that, this is not fair. And, one thing again that happened in the workplace, now I recall, is that people would get passed up for promotion because they've been on maternity leave. They'll say, oh, but she was out of the office for 3 months, so we cannot consider her. Things like that have to be addressed. I mean, I've been out of that kind of workplace for over 20 years, so I don't know how they're dealing with it now. But those are the kind of issues that are biases, and that is patently unfair to women, because of course you have to go for maternity leave because you're going to have a child. Otherwise, how would we continue to populate the world? So those are the kind of things that women must rise up and find their voices. You need to find groups, because I know also not everybody is able to speak up or speak out, but you need to find networks that can help you to challenge these biases and to make sure that they don't affect you negatively. So gone are the days where we just sit down and accept it and just say, well, that is the way of the world. No, that is no longer the way of the world. I mean, we need to make sure that we change the mindset. And how can we do this? The little things we can do. Anything that we realize in the workplace that is not acceptable, that anything that you cannot flip, like, things that they say it's okay for the men to do, but the women cannot do. We need to just challenge it immediately. We need to let them know that we must have an even playing field, because if we don't, if we ourselves are not the ones pushing that agenda, as we can see with 95% men voting for things that are so obvious. I mean, can you imagine voting to say that a Nigerian woman that marries a foreigner, the foreigner cannot become an automatic Nigerian citizen, yet that is done for a Nigerian man? I mean, even if they voted against everything else, isn't that so obvious that we should not vote against? So it goes to show that there's going to be a lot of pushback for the women in trying to galvanize our rights, in trying to ensure that our own positions are heard, and that, we are also, have a seat at the table. And if we don't push for it, nobody is going to push for it for us. So what I would advise is that you must speak up. You must speak up. Yes, you will step on toes. Yes, it may actually affect you negatively, but we need to stand for something, otherwise we'll fall for anything. So I just want to encourage people who are facing those kind of biases, find a network, find a group, find a mentor, find somebody who can help you and support you through this process, but don't give up and keep speaking up.
Thank you very much, Ma. So one last question before I go to the Q&A box. So what about the men? What would you say to the men who perpetrate bias?
To the men who perpetuate bias, put yourself in the place of the women. All these men, they've got wives, they've got sisters, they've got mothers. So I honestly wonder why it's so hard. But I guess it's just the selfishness in human nature. Everybody wants to continue to propagate what is something, a situation or a position that favors them. And that's why they do it. But I think we need to know that, women are half of the society. If half of your society have their hands tied behind their back and are standing only on one leg instead of the 2 legs and 2 free arms that you have, how can the society grow? And in any case, research has shown, especially on board in the corporate world, that where you have more women on boards, those companies perform better. So there's a value that women are bringing, whether it's in restraint, whether it's in being more focused, whether it's in having a more helicopter view of things, whether it's being able to just have that intuition to know what to do, what not to do. There is something women bring to the table, and it's for the good. So I think if men realize that nobody is really coming after you to take your place, what we're just saying is let us be there together. We're not saying we're coming to take over the world and we want all the, take charge of everything. We're just saying, let us have a seat at the table so that all the decisions that be taken are looking at 2 different sides. Because for so long, we have had the men's side going. And where has it taken us? So maybe it's time we have the women come in and let's see where it will take us. So I would say to the men, relax. It's not going to be the end of the world. And, I'll also say to them, whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. So I think you should just relax and let it happen. Let us live together, work together, build together for a better society and a better world.
Thank you very much, Ma. So I will take some questions from the Q&A box. Okay, so there's a question here from an anonymous attendee. After training your successor, did you just trust that he would not move to another company? Or did you have to make him sign a bond or an agreement?
Very good question. I didn't make him sign a bond or an agreement, but what I have done, and what every entrepreneur who wants to put a successor in place must do, is you need to make sure they have skin in the game. So what I've done is that himself and the 2 other staff who have been with me for over 10 years, I've given them a percentage of the company. Now, you see, that is critical because, first of all, excellent staff. Secondly, he's got your whole network. So he could stand up and get up and go and form his own company any day. But if he realizes that this is our company, first of all, I think I have shown integrity by having spoken to them for over years. I'm going to hand over, and I did it so they can trust me that I will do what I will say. And secondly, I have now made them shareholders of the company. And as I've said to them, as the days go by, we will continue to increase your shareholding until we get to a place where it's like maybe 60-40. Because what is most important to me is that company outlives me. So if you're serious about your company outliving you, if you're serious about, bringing in a successor and the company continuing to thrive, you have absolutely no choice but to give up a part of the company. If you don't give them a part of the company and think just salaries and bonuses are going to do it, you're wasting your time. And we need to understand entrepreneurship. We need to be able to release. I know that all of us feel that the companies we have formed, they are babies, we've put so much in them. But guess what? This company, my company, had the best December we've ever had in terms of profitability in a year that I wasn't there, and in a year where 6 months of it we were still ravaged by COVID. So because you see, they will bring new learnings, new leanings, new ideas, more youthfulness, more, you need, if you don't get out of the way, you're not going to allow that company to thrive. You're not going to allow that company to go to that next level because, after 20 years, in fact, people kept saying to me, why are you leaving at 19? Wait until you are 20. I said, you know what? It was either when I'm 60 or whatever it is, I have to leave now. And I'm so glad I did. So that's my advice. You need to be ready to give up a part of your company to be able to ensure that the company continues to thrive.
Okay, thank you very much for that, man. So another question from Zainab Aliu. She says, love you, Mrs. Z. You're truly inspiring and amazing. I am also an empath and wanted to ask how you balance not being taken advantage of when you have a large heart.
Absolutely. Remember, I said that as much as I show kindness and empathy, I'm also very strict. In fact, when you cross the bounds, I can be ruthless. And people like us, it's always very hard to get rid of staff, even staff that are not performing, because I always feel, no, it's my duty. I need to mentor this person. Everybody can be brilliant. I need to do this. But it comes a time where you have to take hard decisions for the good of your company and even for the good of that person. So the balance is that they must see that no matter how fair and kind and warm and loving you are also that person that knows how to discipline, that knows how to take a decision, no matter how uncomfortable it is, for the good of the company. And they must see that in your everyday dealings, even with people. They must see that even in your dealings with your clients. They must see that you will not compromise some standards. You will not compromise some things, that some ethics are important to you. And I think that's just the balance, because if you're just seen as you can't be a pushover, and you make them see that you're not a pushover by just taking some clear examples and taking some clear decisions that may impact some people negatively, but you do it because you want the company to succeed and you want to show the people that whilst I love you all and all that, hey, business is business. So it's a balance. It's a balance, and you really must show it. Otherwise, people will take advantage of you.
Okay, Adalgo Isichi asks, when you were starting your business, how did you deal with people who would ask you to do their events for free?
Very good question. The thing about when you're starting a business is that, you see, fortunately for me, as I said, I'd done 18 years in banking and law. So I had a huge network of both social, family, and corporates. Now, for people who maybe do not have that kind of network when they start, you may have to do some free work. Because you know why the free work is important? You just need to get yourself out there. So if you sit in your office and say, until people are paying me, I'm not moving, you may have to do one or two things that, at least they'll cover the cost. You may not be able to charge what you're charging, but guess what it gives you? It gives you experience, number one. It gives you credibility, and then it gives you that exposure. So take it as a learning curve. Don't take it just as, oh, they're cheating me, they're not paying me. Take it as a seed you're sowing for your business to grow. Because when you now go to that next person, you'll be able to say, oh, I've actually also done this event. They don't need to know that you were not actually paid commercially for the event, but you have truthfully done the event, you've gained the experience, and you can use it to get the next one. So whilst I do not recommend that you run your entire first or 5 years doing free events, no, absolutely not. I'm just indicating that there will be some events you'll have to do, and they're usually friends and family. So you will do that to gather the experience, to get the exposure, and to be able to just lift yourself up to the next level. So don't feel bad about it, but do not make it a habit, and let the person know that I'm doing this for you for now. See me in 5 years' time. You'll be the one begging to get my business.
Okay, well, okay. I'd also like to remind everyone, if you have questions, you can send them through the Q&A box. So there's another one from Gloria Gowal Abiri. In treating your staff with empathy, how do you manage your emotions when they want to leave? It is quite heartbreaking sometimes experiencing them leave without being considerate.
Yes. It's one of those things in life. As I said earlier, it was something that just used to traumatize me because you'd have spent so much money training them, teaching them. It's as if when they know everything, they leave. But, I got used to it. And then I also decided that everybody has a path they have to follow. Not everybody can be with you every time, even in real life. Your friends who were your friends in primary school, are they still your friends when you're in university? Your university friends, are they still your friends now? So it is life, and it's a process we go through in life. So take every one of your staff that you work with, just take them as you have invested your time in them. It is emotional, but at the end of the day, you need to allow them to go and be who God has called them to be. You need to understand that this is your race. You're running your race. And whilst you want all of them to come along because it's comfortable, you're getting along, people will find that they need to run their own race. They need to do things differently. It does hurt and it is emotional, but after a while you get used to it and you release them, as long as they are good leavers. Because we have good leavers and we have bad leavers. I've had some people who said to me, oh, they're going away to do something else. And then they go away and I find out they've set up an events management business. But you know what? It used to drive me so crazy. But why did you just tell me the truth? Because really, we've got 200 million people in Nigeria. So whatever business you're in, there will always be competition. But as long as you maintain your own lane, know what your niche is, face your niche, and you'll just always continue to find people, and you'll be surprised. Sometimes you get used to people and you think, oh God, you can't do without them. Then when they leave, you realize that, wow, somebody else comes and you find that that person is even better. So take it as a process of life and take it as something you're doing that you're giving back to your society. And don't go into it with like, why should I bother with them? They're going to leave in a year anyway. Just do what you have to do. Do what you are called to do all the time and just see how it goes. But I do understand that it can be very emotional, but it's something you get used to after a while.
Okay, I'd also like to just mention that we're streaming live on YouTube as well. And we have a question from someone on YouTube. So Kelechi Hadassah Abiri would ask, did you communicate your intentions to give your staff equity from the onset? Or was it a decision you shared later?
I didn't communicate it from the onset. I only communicated that I would be leaving and I would appoint a successor. But the minute I knew I had decided I was leaving and I was appointing a successor, I knew that I would have to do that. So I did not even tell them that until after I left. So it was not like a motivation for them to stay. So it was like almost a test to see would they stay without it. So it was when I left, I now said that we're going to do this. And it was very well received. And what is even interesting now is that my board, I'm now chairman of the board. And we had, when I left, we now strengthened the board by bringing in 2 external people. And they have actually decided that, it shouldn't even only be the top 3 people who are shareholders, that let everybody, as people, pass certain milestones, maybe 5 years, 8 years, give them a number of shares that they hold only while they're working for you, so that they will experience the dividends, the bonuses that come with those shares. But when they leave, they drop the shares. Just continue to give people that feeling of being a part of the company. And for me, I think that's a great idea. So that's something we're actually going to implement as well, which they don't even know yet, but I have now shared publicly. So the rest of them will hear soon.
Okay, we have another question. It's a bit unclear. I'll try to make some sense out of it. Okay, so from Cecilia Begunde, well done, Ma. How were you able to account for time spent and productivity? Was it about just running by or productivity at all cost? My assumption is she's talking about maybe staff in terms of assessing performance.
I'm not sure. Maybe she can put it in a clearer way in the chat so that I can answer her properly.
Okay. Okay, Cecilia, if you could just rephrase your question. Let me ask another question from one of our members that had been submitted previously. So when you're faced with two equally qualified candidates, how do you determine who to hire?
Okay, two equally qualified candidates, same gender, equally qualified. What is the tipping point? The tipping point for me will be passion. You know, as entrepreneurs, we've said it, that passion cannot sustain a business, but I tell you, passion ignites a fire that you need to be an entrepreneur. So if I speak into two people, they're both well qualified, both level-headed, both have good experience, and one of them is like just, well, it's going to be a job. But for the other person, it's going to be like, wow, this is going to be something I am going to do with my entire being. That for me is what will cut the mark. So I think that is always the identifying factor. Passion, which you can sense from when you interview, and then integrity, which may be until the person is really working for you, you cannot tell, but you can ask questions that show, you know, what kind of, let me tell you, there's something that will be an easy way of knowing. Like I find that when somebody is starting a job and they are ready to just leave their former employer without any qualms and say, oh, I'm coming to you because you're going to pay me more, it's going to be more exciting. I am wary of that kind of person. But when I have someone who cares about the way they leave and wants to serve out that time so that they can hand over properly, even though it is inconvenient for me, that for me is a mark of character. So I think character is so much more important, and all the little things that can show a person of good character and a person who will be passionate about the work will transcend whatever qualifications or whatever it is that they have when they're equally qualified for me.
Okay, I will ask one more question and then wrap up, except we have the clarification from Cecilia. What advice would you give someone going into a leadership position for the first time?
When you're going into a leadership position for the first time, I think what you need to have in the back of your mind is that do unto others as you'd like them to do unto you. I think if you're going to be a leader, you have to first of all ensure that you have that amazing virtue of patience and the skill of listening. You have to be somebody who's willing to listen to people. Because if you go in there only about yourself and what you think and what you want to do, then you may not carry the people along. And you know, there's no point if you're a leader and you have nobody following you. The most important thing about a leader is that you actually have followers, and followers will only follow a leader that can inspire them, that they can trust. So I think for me, the most important thing is for you to always be considerate of the people that you're leading. Always try to think, what would I want if I was in their shoe and I was being led? And I think for me, as long as you do that and you keep that in your mind, then you will draw the followership, you will draw the trust will come from those who are coming after you. And that trust is so important for you to be able to work together and build a business together or build a department together. And I think that's it. So listen, be patient, and be very, very empathetic.
Thank you so much, man. I've learned quite a lot personally, picked up quite a few nuggets. I'd just like to share some of the things that I picked up that resonated with me. The very first thing was when you said you were raised to be a human being first. So it wasn't about whether you're a man or a woman, you were raised to be human. That really, really struck a chord in me. So it's not about whether I'm a man or a woman or men can do this and women can't do that and all of that. It's about giving everybody equal opportunity. The second one was what you just said a few minutes ago. Passion ignites a fire you need to be an entrepreneur. Because I talk to a lot of people and they're like, oh, I'm passionate about this, passionate about that. But sometimes you don't really see that passion, or sometimes you see the passion, but you don't see the knowledge or the skill or the expertise. And then you don't even see the drive that sustains the passion. And then the third thing is also what you've just mentioned now about character. character is something we're sort of short on in society these days.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think it's very, very important that it's emphasized over and over and over again, so that people can learn to be people of character. Okay, Cecilia has rephrased her question. I'll just ask that and then hand over to Aramide. How were you able to rate your staff? Was it by their consistency? Was it by their consistency of always being available, or by their productivity at delivering tasks that impressed you?
I don't know if she's talking about rating my staff in determining who succeeds me, or just rating my staff generally. I mean, if it's rating staff generally, then of course it'll be by, what is important is, of course, that you're delivering on your, your targets, and that you're delivering it, with our mission is to deliver events with passion and creativity, that you're doing what we, and also that you are living our pillars. We have the pillars on which the company is founded on: integrity, the fear of God, excellence, professionalism, creativity, resourcefulness, so all the things that matter to us. Are you living that brand? I mean, are you living that brand? That for us is very, very important, because it's not just about a company anymore. It's about a brand. What are we known for? We're known for excellence. We're known for professionalism. We're known for being people who fear God in everything that we do. We're known for people who deliver on our promises. So are you doing all that? So those are the things we rate the people on. Yes, their productivity, but even more importantly, on what are the core values of our company and how you are living that brand. And for me, it was clearly whoever lived that brand to the highest of my expectation, that would be the person that I felt could lead the company to the next level. Because whatever the values the company were based on that made it work for 19 years, whilst we know that there will be tweaks and turns, there'll be new things, there'll be new things introduced, we also want that company to still run on those timeless and everlasting pillars. And for me, that was what was most important, most important.
Thank you so much for candidly sharing all your thoughts and experiences. It's been a wonderful 1 hour session.
Oh, it's an hour already.
Over to Aramide now. Yes, it is.
It is. Time flies when we're having fun.
I'm sorry, you kept going in and out. So I was looking for you.
No, sorry. I switched off my video, and then I'm actually at work, so trying to multitask, being trying to be superwoman. But I want to just say thank you very much for this. First of all, thanks to Bubemi for moderating stunningly. And then thank you so much, Mrs. Z, for this. This has given us so much insight. I'm sure there's so many takeaways. As people who've joined on YouTube, people who will watch after today, we really appreciate the few cents that you've shared today. And I'm sure people would want to contact you in the future. How people can access or find your books and your other literature that you've published or released. Where do they go?
Okay, I think we have them stored basically in Lantana Bookshop in Victoria Island, but I can also leave you my, you have my phone number and my email address. So if anybody is interested, they could just send you an email. Or Amara, can I have your phone number? Let me give you a number right now, actually. What's your number?
We can put it in the chat, so maybe...
Okay. Let me put it in the chat.
Put the email and then the phone number, the contact person's phone number in the chat. So if people have any other questions with regards to even business, they can reach out.
Okay. Send to everyone. It's only allowing me to send to hosts and panelists, but
you just drop down. Okay, if you do that, then maybe we'll copy and Yemi can send it to everyone. So that's fine. If you just put it in, then we'll copy paste and circulate. And thank you, everyone. I know today is a crazy day, competing events. I was telling them here that in Africa, Women's Day is a thing. So there's events, panels, there's like 200 events today. So for those who are able to join, really appreciate the time that you've taken out of your busy day. Happy Women's Day. Keep shining. And please feel free to reach out to us, Niger Startups. Maybe you want to put our website as well and our email for people to contact us or find out more. So again, thank you, Mrs. Z. Thank you, Amara. Thank you, Niger Startups team. Couldn't have done this without you. And thank you, Bubemi. So have a lovely, lovely afternoon. Let's see if
thank you, everyone.
Yemi has put it in the. Can we put Amara's number in the send it to everyone? Okay, great. Done that. So we can contact her.
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay.
And I must talk about my book. I have a great book that I did as I left the company called An Eventful Life, which is actually a compilation. It's like it's called Lessons in Life, Leadership, and Entrepreneurship. So it was basically just chronicling my experiences in the 19 years as an event planner. And so that's also another book that you can get apart from the God's Waiting Room books. So
okay, fantastic. An Eventful Life.
For entrepreneurships, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. And so when is the next souk going to be? Fashion souk?
The next fashion souk will be in June. And what I'll do is maybe I'll send you so that you can put it on your network. So we're trying to have them twice a year now that life is getting back to normal. So it will be June and December.
Because we do have a few members who always want to exhibit, so I'm sure they'll be keen to participate. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
God bless. Bye. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah. Thanks, Yemi. Thanks, Christabel, Somi, Gideon. Catch you later.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.